You ever watch a live debate and feel the air get sucked out of the room? That's exactly what happened when 26-year-old Karoline Leavitt shut down Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett with one brutal line that left the audience gasping and the internet on fire. This wasn't just a comeback. It was a career-defining moment. And trust me, you're going to want to see it. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The air was thick with anticipation. The live countdown ticked away, studio lights burned bright, and millions of viewers across the country tuned in, unknowingly about to witness a moment that would go viral within minutes. This wasn't just another news segment. It was a political powder keg, ready to explode. The topic? The 2024 election. But it quickly spiraled into much more. Accusations of media bias, social division, and the future of American discourse. It was a setup destined for fireworks. On the left side of the screen, wearing a sharp pinstripe blazer, and sitting with an air of calm confidence, was Karoline Leavitt. At just 26 years old, Karoline is no stranger to the political spotlight. A former press aide under President Trump, she's earned a reputation as one of the boldest young voices in conservative media today. She speaks quickly, thinks even faster, and always wears a smile that says, "I'm ready for whatever you throw at me." On the right side, sitting firmly in her chair with a commanding presence, was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a rising Democratic star from Texas. Known for her fiery speeches and unapologetic tone, Jasmine came into the segment ready to push back against what she calls the growing wave of misinformation threatening our democracy. Her background in law and activism makes her a formidable opponent, sharp, assertive, and unafraid to get personal when the debate gets heated. The opening minutes started out cordial, predictable talking points, mutual interruptions, and the usual TV panel pacing. But if you were paying attention, you could feel the undercurrent of tension building. The moderator posed a question about media integrity and the role of political messaging during the 2024 campaign season. Karoline gave a measured answer, calling out what she described as the obvious bias in mainstream reporting, especially when it comes to how conservative candidates are portrayed. She said, "You can look at how headlines frame conservative policy, always extreme, always dangerous, yet progressives get labeled as bold and visionary. That's not reporting. That's activism disguised as journalism." The host nodded, turning to Jasmine for her response, and that's when the sparks started flying. Jasmine leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly, her voice gaining power with every word. She fired back with a direct hit. "What we don't need right now is another polished puppet pretending to be a truth-teller. These talking points about media bias, they're designed to distract from real issues like voter suppression, systemic injustice, and the lies coming out of certain political camps. Let's stop pretending this is about fairness. This is about facts versus fiction." The studio went noticeably quiet. That wasn't just a disagreement. That was a shot fired. Jasmine had clearly called Karoline out, not just as a political rival, but as a symbol of everything she believed was wrong with modern conservative media. Karoline didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. Instead, she smiled. And right then, you could tell, she was loading up for something. She tilted her head slightly, letting the silence hang for just a second longer than usual. A moment that told everyone watching, she's not backing down. Before she even spoke, the energy in the room had shifted. The host, clearly sensing the moment, gave her the floor with a simple gesture. Karoline leaned in, placed her hands calmly on the desk, and delivered a response that would be replayed on every platform within hours. "Congresswoman, I appreciate your passion. But let me just say this. If calling out media hypocrisy makes me a puppet, then I'd rather be a puppet of truth than a politician pretending to care while reading from a script written by lobbyists." The delivery was icy calm. No raised voice, no shouting, just precision. You could feel the hit. Even Jasmine blinked, slightly caught off guard by how swift and cutting the reply was. The host tried to pivot the conversation back to neutral ground, but the moment had already stolen the spotlight. Viewers watching live knew instantly. This was no longer just a debate. This was now a political face-off, and Karoline had just landed the first major blow. What made this moment so powerful wasn't just what was said, it was the dynamic. Here you had two incredibly smart, powerful women on opposite ends of the political spectrum, refusing to be talked over, refusing to be polite for the sake of TV decorum. Karoline had just flipped Jasmine's accusation on its head. She didn't dodge the insult, she redirected it. She acknowledged the criticism and then turned it into a pointed reminder of her own stance. That too many elected officials hide behind buzzwords and moral posturing while ignoring the voices of everyday Americans. As the exchange went viral, pundits and fans on both sides reacted. Some accused Karoline of being disrespectful. Others praised her for standing her ground in a political landscape where conservatives are often shouted down. Jasmine's supporters claimed she said what needed to be said, while her critics noted she never actually addressed the media bias point Karoline raised. But the truth is, both women showed up to fight, and only one walked away with the momentum. This was more than a TV moment. This was a generational clash, a battle of style, of substance, of political identity in the age of viral media. And Karoline Leavitt, armed with calm delivery and a sharp tongue, proved she could hold her own, and maybe even win, in a room filled with opposition. No matter where you stand politically, one thing is undeniable. When Karoline smiled and struck back, she changed the tone of the entire conversation, and it left the audience, and her opponent, absolutely stunned. The line that shook the room. Karoline Leavitt's viral comeback to why. Jasmine Crockett, in the world of live television, silence can speak louder than shouting. And in that brief, breathless pause, after one of the most biting lines ever delivered on a political panel, it was silence that told the story. It all happened within the span of a few unforgettable seconds, but those seconds would echo across social media, newsrooms, and living rooms across America. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, known for her sharp tongue and unapologetic tone, was already fired up. The discussion had been intense: election politics, media trust, and what the future holds for a divided nation. And then, she went for it. She looked directly into the camera, not at the host, not at her opponent, but into the eyes of the audience, at home, and delivered her line with chilling clarity. What we don't need are these young political puppets pretending to be experts when all they're doing is regurgitating talking points from a failed administration. Boom. The words dropped like a grenade. There was no mistaking the target. Karoline Leavitt, sitting just feet away, didn't even blink. But you could see it. Something in her shifted. The hosts, sensing the tension, stopped talking. The other panelists looked frozen in place. You could almost hear a pin drop. That line was loaded. Accusations of inexperience, blind loyalty, and political theater all wrapped in one condescending soundbite. Jasmine's face. Confident, controlled. Like she'd just delivered the final blow in a debate she thought she had already won. But the thing about confidence is, it only works if your opponent doesn't hit back harder. And Karoline? Oh, she was ready. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she calmly leaned forward, folded her hands, and with a poise that didn't match her age but rather a seasoned veteran, she delivered what would become the most replayed line of the night. "Congresswoman, I may be young, but at least I'm not reading from a script written by lobbyists while pretending to care about the American people." Silence. Again. But this time louder. The comeback was surgical, precise, devastating, and delivered with a calm that made it hit 10 times harder. She didn't yell. She didn't stumble. She just spoke, and it wrecked the room. Jasmine Crockett, so full of fire just seconds earlier, froze for a split second, not long, but long enough. The camera caught her face, eyes widening just slightly, mouth tightening, that tiny flicker of realization. She hit me harder than I expected. The hosts didn't know what to do. The segment wasn't supposed to go this far off script. You could tell by their body language. They wanted to pivot, but even they knew they had to let it play out. The audience, both in studio and watching live, was eating it up. Online, Twitter, now X, TikTok, and YouTube clips exploded within minutes. Karoline Leavitt just ended Jasmine Crockett's whole argument in one sentence. This is how you handle being disrespected. Calm, direct, savage. The look on Jasmine's face after that comeback? Priceless. Even political commentators, who normally stayed neutral, couldn't help but react. That was one of the cleanest, most controlled political comebacks I've ever seen on live TV. A CNN analyst. Leavitt may be young, but she just schooled a sitting congresswoman. A Fox News commentator. What made the moment so unforgettable? It wasn't just the words, it was the tone, the delivery, and the unshakable confidence. Behind them, Karoline didn't shout back. She didn't resort to personal attacks. Instead, she flipped Jasmine's own insult and used it to make a bigger point. That too many politicians, especially in Washington, perform empathy while pushing scripted agendas that don't serve real people. And she said it all while staying completely composed. That's what won people over. This wasn't just a clapback. It was a lesson in power under pressure. In just 20 seconds, Karoline Leavitt proved that you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to command the most attention. You just have to strike when it counts and know how to land it with impact. The segment ended soon after, but the moment had already become the highlight. Jasmine tried to jump back in, but her next points fell flat. You could feel the shift. She looked unsettled, even slightly distracted. Karoline, meanwhile, stayed consistent, measured, and laser-focused on the issue. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile too wide. She simply continued making her case, and that's how you know you've won. The next morning, the clip was the #1 trending moment across YouTube's political category. Memes flooded the internet. Reaction videos popped up everywhere, from conservative YouTubers calling it iconic to centrist commentators praising the debate composure masterclass. Even some of Jasmine's own supporters admitted in comment sections that she got out-debated in her own arena. And Karoline? She responded to the viral attention with grace. In a follow-up interview, she said, "I have a lot of respect for anyone who serves in Congress. But respect doesn't mean silence. When someone takes a shot at me, or at the truth, I'm going to push back, firmly and respectfully." That statement alone cemented her position not just as a viral moment, but as a rising figure in modern conservative media. She had stood her ground, handled pressure, and turned a personal insult into a national conversation. And Jasmine? While she continues to hold her seat and command her own base of support, there's no denying that this moment left a dent. It reminded everyone watching that confidence can be challenged, and sometimes outmatched. In politics, timing is everything. And Karoline Leavitt didn't just fire back. She calculated, delivered, and won the moment. One sentence, one pause, one perfectly timed response, and the internet hasn't stopped talking about it since. The fallout. Karoline Leavitt's comeback leaves Jasmine Crockett. Reeling the moment Karoline Leavitt delivered her now viral comeback, it was as if time stopped. In the studio. "Congresswoman, I may be young, but at least I'm not reading from a script written by lobbyists while pretending to care about the American people." That line sliced through the tension like a blade. The live audience didn't know how to react. A ripple of gasps ran through the room. Some people clapped. Others just sat frozen, stunned into silence. Even the host, usually smooth, professional, and composed, fumbled his cue cards, visibly thrown by the intensity of what had just unfolded. There wasn't a single raised voice. No shouting match. Just a cold, calm strike that shifted the entire tone of the segment. As the cameras kept rolling, you could almost see the emotional whiplash on Jasmine Crockett's face. She blinked, straightened up, tried to keep her composure. But the confidence she had just seconds earlier, the fierce forward energy, was suddenly gone. She tried to respond, tried to gather herself, but nothing she said could cut through. The echo of Karoline's words, and the internet, it exploded. Within minutes of the segment airing, Twitter, X, was on fire. Screenshots of Jasmine's stunned expression and clips of Karoline's one-liner started circulating with captions like, "Karoline just ended Jasmine's whole career with one line. That comeback was cold. She didn't even raise her voice. We just witnessed a political KO on live TV. Influencers and political commentators began chiming in. Conservative pages hailed Karoline as a rising star who knows how to handle pressure. Even some neutral observers admitted the moment was one of the most compelling political mic drops of the year. One YouTube clip of the exchange hit over 1 million views within 12 hours. Reaction videos, memes, even TikTok reenactments of the moment went viral. Viewers from all sides of the political spectrum couldn't stop replaying the scene. But what made the fallout even more fascinating was what happened immediately after the line was delivered. Jasmine tried to recover. She really did. She cleared her throat, leaned forward, and attempted to steer the conversation back toward policy. "Let's be clear here," she began, trying to reset the tone. "This isn't about lobbyists or scripts. This is about truth and accountability, something your side keeps avoiding." But it was too late. Every word she said was drowned out, not literally, but metaphorically, by the impact of Karoline's earlier statement. You could feel it. The rhythm was gone. The crowd wasn't locked in like before. Her arguments, which earlier had carried weight, now felt like background noise. Karoline had stolen the momentum, and there was no getting it. Like it wasn't just a good line, it was the perfect line, delivered at exactly the right time, with laser focus and chilling calmness. It redefined the entire debate. And Karoline? She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She didn't need to. She sat back, composed, ready for the next question, like a boxer who knows the knockout punch has already landed. Political analysts quickly picked up on what had just happened. On MSNBC, one commentator said, "Whether you agree with her or not, Karoline Leavitt demonstrated remarkable control under pressure." That line will follow this debate long after the news cycle moves on. On Fox News, another added, "That's how you defend yourself with style. No shouting, no name-calling, just straight facts with a razor edge." The online conversation exploded with hashtags like Your Karoline KO and Jasmine Shutdown trending by midnight. TikTok was filled with clips of Gen Z creators breaking down the moment like it was a UFC fight. One user posted, "The way Karoline didn't even blink, like she knew exactly what she was doing. Respect." Another wrote, "That was surgical." Jasmine tried to come for her age, and Karoline turned it into a masterclass in confidence. Even Jasmine's supporters had to admit she got hit hard. Some took to the comments, urging her to stay focused on policy. Others blamed the moderators for losing control of the segment. But no matter the spin, one fact remained. Karoline Leavitt had taken the hit and turned it into a game-changing moment. The next morning, news outlets ran headlines like, "Young firebrand, Karoline Leavitt, stuns Congresswoman with viral clapback, Jasmine." Crockett rattled after heated exchange. Twitter reacts. Leavitt vs. Crockett. Who won the battle of the night? The debate was no longer about the 2024 election or media narratives. It was about one perfectly timed line that revealed how poise under pressure can dominate a conversation. And Karoline's star? It rose sharply. Within 24 hours, she was booked. On 3 major talk shows, her social media following skyrocketed. Supporters praised her grace under fire. Even some undecided voters commented that they respected how she handled herself like a pro. As for Jasmine Crockett, she maintained her composure in later interviews. She brushed off the viral reaction, claiming, "People love drama, but I'm focused on the issues. That's what really matters." A fair point, but one that couldn't erase the visual the silence, and the cold precision of Karoline's delivery. This wasn't just a debate moment. It was a reminder of how fast public perception can shift, especially in the digital age. It proved that when it comes to high-stakes political battles, style and delivery are just as important as substance. And Karoline Leavitt, she didn't just survive the confrontation, she owned it. She walked in with a smile, got hit with an insult, and walked out having flipped the script on a sitting congresswoman. All with one sentence. And the internet hasn't stopped talking about it since. Aftershock. How Karoline Leavitt's comeback took over the internet and shifted the narrative A's. Soon as the live segment ended, it was as if the floodgates had burst open. The studio lights dimmed, the host wrapped up the show with a shaky smile, and the guests left their seats. But outside the building, the real explosion had just begun. Karoline Leavitt was trending across every major social media platform before the credits even finished rolling. On Twitter, X, the clip was reposted tens of thousands of times within the first hour. Political commentators were scrambling to react. Conservative influencers hailed the moment as legendary. Liberal commentators rushed to defend their side, but even then, some were quietly admitting what many had seen with their own eyes. Karoline Leavitt didn't just defend herself. She flipped the script and took control of the entire conversation. And the internet loved it. TikTok was flooded with reaction videos, some creators lip-syncing the now famous line, "At least I'm not reading from a script written by lobbyists while pretending to care about the American people." People edited the clip into mock movie trailers, debate highlight reels, even sports-style montages set to dramatic music. One viral remix showed Jasmine's stunned reaction in slow motion, followed by a booming sound effect and the word "savage" flashing across the screen. Meanwhile, YouTube and Instagram were packed with commentary videos. Everyone had something to say, from political analysts breaking down the rhetoric to regular viewers just shaking their heads in disbelief. Conservatives rallied behind Karoline like never before. Right-wing pages praised her poise, confidence, and refusal to back down. She took that insult, didn't flinch, and turned it into the moment of the night. Karoline Leavitt just taught a masterclass on how to win without shouting. That's how you stand your ground, calm, focused, and surgical. Even prominent Republican figures began reposting the clip. Some called her the future of the movement. Others suggested she be given a larger platform, possibly hinting at her rising potential on the national stage. Liberals, on the other hand, were split. Many hardcore supporters of Jasmine Crockett circled the wagons defending her. Initial comments and claiming the backlash was exaggerated, but not everyone followed that script. Some progressives admitted that while they disagreed with Karoline's politics, they couldn't deny what they saw. That was a clean hit. She stayed composed and didn't fall into the emotional trap. One left-leaning YouTuber posted, "Look, I'm no fan of Karoline Leavitt, but if you're going to insult someone on live TV, you better be ready for them to hit back." And she did. Hard. Then came the headlines from more neutral media outlets, signaling that this moment had crossed party lines and entered the broader public conversation. Newsweek ran a piece titled, "A Viral TV Moment That Shows How the New Generation of Political Voices Aren't Afraid to Clap Back." Media Watch, a media analysis group, noted, "Karoline Leavitt shocks viewers with her poise and precision under pressure. Her response showed not just confidence, but strategy." The fee. Hill called it one of the most memorable exchanges of the election cycle so far. It wasn't just about politics anymore. It was about presentation, generational dynamics, and media savviness. Karoline, at just 26, had shown she could go toe-to-toe with an experienced congresswoman and come out not just unscathed, but elevated, and the timing couldn't have been better. In an era where viral moments carry more weight than traditional ads, and where public perception is shaped more by 30-second clips than full interviews, Karoline had just struck political gold. But more than that, she'd redefined the rules of engagement. For decades, younger conservatives have been told to wait. Their turn, stay polite, and avoid confrontation. Karoline didn't scream, she didn't insult. She just refused to let a personal jab go unanswered, and did it in a way that commanded attention. This wasn't just a flash in the pan. This was a shift in momentum. Suddenly, she wasn't just a former Trump spokeswoman or a rising Republican voice. She was a serious media force. People who had never heard of her were now following her. Voters in swing states were watching clips, forming opinions. She was controlling the narrative. And Jasmine? She remained composed in the aftermath, releasing a follow-up statement saying, "Live TV can be unpredictable, but my focus remains on serving the people of Texas and pushing for progress." It was professional, diplomatic, but it didn't capture the same viral energy. Because in today's political theater, how you say something matters just as much as what you say. And in this particular episode, Karoline Leavitt had mastered both. Final thoughts. What started as a routine panel on political discourse turned into a defining moment for a young conservative voice who refused to back down. The internet crowned a winner. The media followed suit. And while both women would continue to fight for their causes, there was no denying that Karoline Leavitt had just gone viral in the best and boldest way possible. The aftermath. Karoline Leavitt goes viral and becomes a political powerhouse in the days following the explosive live segment. The political world didn't just move on, it leaned in. Karoline Leavitt, fresh off her now viral comeback, was suddenly everywhere. Morning talk shows, primetime cable news, independent podcasts, even college campus panels and influencer live streams. She wasn't doing a victory lap. She wasn't bragging or posting memes. Instead, she leaned into the moment with clarity, confidence, and purpose. "I didn't come on that show to throw insults," she told one host on national TV. "I came with facts and the courage to say what millions of Americans are thinking, but are too afraid to say on live television." It was a savvy move. Rather than gloat about winning a debate, Karoline pivoted to substance, reminding audiences why she was there in the first place, to challenge narratives and give voice to people who feel ignored by the mainstream. And guess what? It worked. Her follower count on social media exploded. 1 week earlier, she had a modest base of political supporters and conservative activists. Now, she was being followed by celebrities, business figures, and everyday Americans who had never heard her name before that segment. Her posts started pulling in tens of thousands of likes. Her engagement soared. People weren't just following, they were listening. Clips of the debate moment continued to circulate, hitting new milestones. Every day 1 million views, 8 million views, then 10 million and counting. Reaction videos, commentary, and remixes didn't slow down. They multiplied. Even late-night comedy shows began referencing it. One sketch featured a parody of the exchange, but even in satire, it was clear. Karoline had dominated the moment. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett was doing her best to change the subject. In an interview the following week, she referred to the exchange as just another political distraction. "This is what happens when people don't want to talk about the real issues," she said. "They focus on the drama and ignore the bigger picture." It was a calculated attempt to downplay the damage, but the internet wasn't buying it. Comment sections were flooded with replies. It wasn't just drama. You got called out and had no comeback. You started it, and Karoline finished it. Simple. That wasn't a distraction. That was a lesson in staying composed. Even some of her own supporters began urging Jasmine to stay focused and avoid direct jabs in future appearances. The message was clear. Don't underestimate your opponent, especially not in front of millions of viewers. While Jasmine tried to shift gears, Karoline doubled down on her momentum. She began turning that one moment into a broader message, a narrative about speaking truth to power, defending conservative values, and standing up for younger voices in politics. Her team released a short video on social media summarizing the moment, followed by a montage of clips where Karoline challenged the status quo, called out hypocrisy, and stood firm in interviews. It ended with the tagline, "Young, bold, unafraid." It racked up over 3 million views in 24 hours. Commentators began floating the idea that Karoline wasn't just a conservative media personality, she was becoming a political force in her own right. Some whispered about a potential congressional run. Others speculated she could be tapped for a major campaign role in 2024. Whether or not those rumors come true, one thing was undeniable. Karoline Leavitt had just made a name for herself in a way very few political figures, let alone ones under 30, ever do. This wasn't a carefully staged political rollout. It wasn't a paid ad. It wasn't a consultant-crafted moment. It was real, it was raw, and it was viral. It tapped into the energy of a generation tired of scripted politicians and overproduced sound bites. Karoline didn't just talk the talk. She walked into a hostile room, took a shot, and hit back with calm, precise confidence. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. No shouting. No finger-pointing, no name-calling, just one line, delivered with the kind of control and conviction that made people stop scrolling and start watching. And in the world of politics today, that's gold. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett has stayed relatively quiet on the matter. No follow-up tweets, no shade, no memes, just carefully curated posts about policy and community work. There's no doubt she's a smart, capable congresswoman. But after that night, she may be a little more cautious when it comes to underestimating younger voices, especially when the cameras are rolling. And who can blame her? Because in that single moment, one exchange that lasted less than 20 seconds, Karoline Leavitt didn't just clap back. She leveled up. Conclusion: whether you love her, hate her, or are still figuring out where you stand, Karoline Leavitt's rise isn't just a blip on the screen, it's a shift in the conversation. She's part of a new generation of political voices, bold, sharp, and unafraid to fight back without losing composure. And while Jasmine Crockett will no doubt continue to serve her district and make headlines of her own, she'll always remember the night she faced off with Karoline on live TV and watched the internet crown a new contender. This wasn't just a TV spat. It was a power shift. It proved that Gen Z conservatives are stepping into the spotlight, and they're not coming quietly. With social media, sharp wit, and fearless delivery, Karoline Leavitt didn't just survive a confrontation with a sitting congresswoman. She dominated it, and if this moment taught us anything, it's this: underestimating someone because of their age or political affiliation might just be your biggest mistake.